You have $100. Not $100,000, not a windfall, not a bonus or an inheritance or a lucky break. $100. The kind of $100 that vanishes from most bank accounts between the 1st and the 15th without a clear explanation. It goes to a meal you barely remember, a subscription that kept renewing without your attention, a handful of small purchases that meant nothing individually and everything collectively. $100 that existed and then didn't, leaving no real trace of where it went. I want to talk about what happens when that $100 goes somewhere intentional instead. Not because $100 a month produces dramatic results quickly. It doesn't. The math on this is slower than most financial content suggests, and the early years are genuinely unimpressive in a way that causes most people to quit before anything meaningful has had time to develop. But the first $100 invested consistently does something to the rest of your financial life that has almost nothing to do with the dollar amount itself. It changes the category you're operating in. It changes what you notice, what you prioritize, and what you believe is possible, in ways that a single large investment made once and forgotten simply cannot replicate. The $100 is not the point. What the $100 starts is the point. Month 1. You open a brokerage account on a weeknight. Fidelity, Vanguard, Schwab, any of them. The process takes about 20 minutes. You link your checking account, set up an automatic $100 transfer on the first of every month, select a total market index fund, and confirm the purchase. Then you close the app. That's the entire action. The next morning, nothing looks different. The coffee tastes the same. The commute takes the same amount of time. The account has $100 in it. The market moved slightly in one direction or another, and your life appears completely unchanged. This is exactly the moment most people underestimate what they just did. Because what they just did was not primarily a financial transaction. It was a category transfer. Before that Tuesday evening, you were someone who intended to start investing. After it, you are someone who invests. Those are not the same person. They notice different things. They ask different questions. They make different decisions when money appears and when it disappears. And 30 years from now, they arrive at completely different places. Not because of the $100, but because of the shift in identity that the $100 made permanent. Research on financial behavior is consistent on this point. The single strongest predictor of continued investment is having started. Not the amount, not the market conditions at entry, not financial literacy scores. Whether the account exists and has money in it. You just crossed that threshold. Everything that follows is easier than what you just did. Month 6. The market drops 8% over 3 weeks. Your $600 in contributions shows a balance of roughly $563. You've lost $37 on paper, and your nervous system, which was designed in an environment where loss meant something much more serious than a portfolio fluctuation, responds with more urgency than the situation deserves. This is the first real test, not of your financial sophistication, of your ability to do nothing when doing nothing feels completely wrong. The people who pass this test look at the $563 balance, remind themselves that this money won't be needed for decades, and close the app without touching anything. Those are the people who ultimately build real wealth, not because they're smarter or more disciplined by nature, because they've correctly understood that their job at this stage is not to optimize. It's to not interfere. The people who fail this test sell, move to cash, and wait for the market to stabilize before re-entering. The problem is that stability never announces itself. The recovery starts while the headlines still look terrible. They buy back in higher than they sold, repeat the same cycle at the next downturn, and the cumulative cost in missed returns across 20 or 30 years is not a small number. JP Morgan's research found that missing only the 10 best trading days between 2003 and 2023 cut returns in half. Most of those 10 days occurred within 2 weeks of the worst days of the same period. The people waiting in cash for things to feel safer missed the very recovery they were waiting for. Your $600 became $563. You closed the app. You did nothing. That was the correct answer. Year 1. 12 months of $100 transfers. $1,200 contributed. At a 7% average annual return, your balance sits at approximately $1,247. You made $47 beyond your contributions, roughly the cost of a dinner out. From the outside, this looks like evidence that starting small doesn't work. From the inside, it's the beginning of something that the early numbers will never adequately represent. You are not building a balance yet. You are building a rate. That $47 in returns this year becomes $94 next year on the same contributions because the base is larger. The year after that, it becomes $145. The compounding isn't dramatic yet. It won't be for several years. But it is present, and it is accelerating. And every month you continue is a month that acceleration has more to work from. Something else is happening too, and it doesn't appear in the account balance at all. You've started noticing things you didn't notice before. The expense ratio buried in your 401k that's 1.2% when a comparable fund charges 0.03%. The credit card interest rate that's quietly canceling the return on your investment every month you carry a balance. The annual subscription renewing at $180 for something you've used twice. The investment created a financial awareness that's expanding outward. Not because you became more disciplined overnight, but because you became someone who tracks returns. And once you track returns, you start seeing costs completely differently. That shift is worth more than the $47 in your account. Year 5. 60 months. $6,000 contributed. Balance at approximately $7,200. The return is now 20% of your total balance. No longer negligible. No longer something that rounds to a dinner. Your investment is generating roughly $42 per month on its own. Almost half your monthly contribution, produced without any action from you. The ratio keeps shifting in your favor from here. Within 5 more years, the monthly return will exceed the monthly contribution. Your money will be doing more than you are. But year 5 is also when the most dangerous temptation arrives. Your income is higher than it was when you started. The $100 that felt significant in month 1 feels almost routine now, maybe too small to matter. And the thought appears, you've been consistent long enough. 1 year of pausing the transfer won't make a real difference. It will. 3 years of missed contributions at year 5 doesn't cost you $3,600. At 7% returns over the remaining investment horizon, that pause costs approximately $19,000 by year 30. What feels like a minor adjustment is actually one of the most expensive decisions in the entire 30-year journey, made casually, in a moment when the stakes are least visible. Don't pause it. Increase it if your income allows, but don't pause it. Year 10. $12,000 contributed. Balance around $17,400. The market is now doing nearly half the annual work. The crossover point, where your yearly return exceeds your yearly contribution, is roughly 2 years away. After that, even if you stopped contributing entirely, the account would still grow each year by more than you were putting in. But the more significant change by year 10 isn't in the numbers. The monthly transfer no longer requires a decision. It happens the way automatic bill payments happen, without deliberation, without asking whether this is the month to do it. The identity that shifted in month 1 is now so deeply established that stopping would feel like the anomaly, not continuing. You also have something that doesn't show in any balance. 10 years of evidence that you can make a commitment and honor it through market crashes, life disruptions, and every force that typically erodes financial intentions. That track record is worth more than the account value in terms of what it predicts about the next 20 years. Year 20 and beyond. 20 years in, $24,000 contributed. The balance sits near $52,000. The market generated $28,000 more than you put in. You have crossed from being the engine of the account to being its steward, maintaining something that now grows substantially on its own every year. At 30 years, $36,000 contributed. The balance reaches approximately $121,000. For every dollar you invested, compounding contributed $2.36. Your total return is 236% on contributions, built entirely from one automated decision made on a weeknight that took 20 minutes and felt, at the time, almost too small to justify. Scale the contribution and the outcome scales with it. $200 a month for 30 years produces roughly $243,000. $300 a month reaches around $365,000. But the most powerful variable in every one of those projections isn't the amount. It's the time. The person who starts at 25 with $100 a month arrives at 55 in a meaningfully stronger position than the person who starts at 35 with $300, even though the second person invested more money overall. The missing decade costs more than the higher contribution recovers. It always does.